Welcome everybody to our money talk. We are in the middle of a economic crisis in our country, which has happened before. And this one's a little bit different. Maybe we haven't been through something like this ever before. So it is important that we take some time, step aside and talk about where we are in money and our language and our beliefs about money. So here's some things we're going to discuss. We're going to talk about, first of all, we'll spend quite a bit of time on beliefs about money because I think that's huge and at the root of a lot of our challenges. Also, some things we do in financial crisis. Maybe there's some good things we do and there's some bad things we do. So feel free to join in on the discussion if you want to. And I'll try to keep up with the chat. I don't always get to keep up with that when we're on the call. We're also going to talk about personal budgeting. We're going to talk about being content, how to cultivate contentment. We're going to talk about setting goals. We're going to talk about commitment. And we're going to talk about uncertainty. So there's a lot to cover here. I do have a manual. If that is something you would like, please email me at paulaharriscoaching@gmail.com. Please email me, or email would be best. Texting would be second best to let me know that you want that so I don't miss anybody's request while we're on the call. So I have sent that out already to a couple of people, and I'm happy to share that with you. So it's about 35 pages in the manual. I will share some of that manual on the screen as we're talking. So, hey, Derek. Good to have Eric Vickery, my partner, on the call with us today. All right. And we are recording, and thanks everyone for joining. So let's get right into it. So the first thing we're going to do, as I mentioned, is talk about beliefs about money. And boy, that can travel lots of different ways. So how many of you think, and feel free to participate, if you're on mute, you can unmute yourself. Feel free to answer some of the questions. How many of you have an attitude of, I deserve the best, or I accept the best? And on a spiritual level, that's because of who we are in Christ. But do any of you have a struggle believing that you deserve to be okay financially? Anyone have anything they want to share about that? We're pretty much in a good place in our head. Yep. Thanks for those nods. Did you know that money is mentioned over 140 times in the Bible? Pretty crazy, huh? So here are some scriptures to consider. There's some misconceptions about money being the root of all evil. What does it really say? It says the love of money. When we make money an idol, it can lead to all kinds of evil. So there's the Pharisees were lovers of money. In Hebrews, it talks about keeping free from the love of money. In Malachi, it talks about tithing and giving. Philippians talks about being content and receiving full payment. That was a promise of mine a few years ago. Matthew says we can't serve two masters. It also says to ask in Matthew, ask, seek, and knock, ASK. We teach that in some of our case presentation skills, don't we? And Matthew 10 talks about receiving. Isaiah 44 talks about no other gods. And Isaiah 45 talks about your calling and your treasures. So there's lots of discussion about money in the Bible. How many of you have heard of Rich Dad, Poor Dad? Kiyosaki, I think that's his name. Some of you have read his materials and things like that. So I love this quote from him. When you say, I can't afford it, your brain stops working. How about that? By asking, how can I afford it? Your brain is put to work. This helps. This helps with our case presentation as well, doesn't it? How can we, if we can make this work financially, would this work for you? So think about this quote. What do you find yourself saying the most? Is your self-talk saying I can't? Or is your self-talk saying how? And I'm not talking about frivolous spending or spending that we don't need to be spending on. Here's some other beliefs about money that I've heard over the years. Money doesn't grow on trees. Anybody, your parents say that to you? Money is evil. Yeah. Rich people are crooks. Some people say that because that just justifies them being poor. Right? I don't want to be rich and pompous. Oh yeah, that you say that because you are not, and you're labeling. So we don't want to be doing that. I'm never going to have a good job. I'll never make a lot of money. Money talks. It says bye-bye. I'm always in debt. So here's some I am statements that get pulled in. My parents were poor, and I'm going to be poor too. We don't come from a wealthy family. So that means I can't have it either. There's only so much to go around. You can't get blood out of a turnip. I heard a lot of these things growing up. Did you? Money will make me happy. No. What did Walter Haley used to say? It'll help me enjoy my misery in some interesting places. Right? Everyone else comes first. I can't charge that much. I don't deserve it. Save for a rainy day. A penny saved is a penny earned. I resent others that have money. And there's that song, you work hard for the money. Yeah, so you have to think about, you have to ask yourself, what are my thoughts about money? What are my beliefs about money? What is my self-talk about money? Because 75% of our brain is subconscious. And whatever we're saying, our self-talk, it gives commands to our subconscious mind. So whether you think you can or you can't, either way you're right. That's Henry Ford. I love that quote too. So as a man thinketh, so is he. We know that proverb, right? There's a new documentary movie out on that. Wealth doesn't come from managing your money. Wealth comes from managing your emotions behind the money. Hello? Yep. And, I've been a single mom with 5 kids. I've been in the no money zone. I understand what that feels like. I understand what that looks like. And I've been through shutdowns. The first time I didn't handle it very well. The second time, handled it a lot better and started creating. Money is emotional. What does that mean to you? Think about it. Think about how is money emotional in my life? I think a lot of us put our security in our dollar amount in our bank account. And I think we're going to talk about uncertainty. And if you are putting your security in your money, that is misplaced. And you're going to be disappointed. Am I right? Money is emotional. We may not realize it is, and we may not even realize it till it's gone. Or we're in trouble. I love these quotes from Joe Vitale. The more I spend, the more I have. Now, I'm not talking frivolous, but I don't need money. The money needs me. Oh my goodness. Write that one down. I don't need money. The money needs me. Why does the money need me? Now, I had to think about this for a little bit. Okay, so if I don't need money and money needs me, what does that mean? Well, if I think about all the people that benefit from the money that I spend, and wouldn't they be having a harder time if I did not spend that money? So the money needs me to be a good steward. Stewardship is something we don't talk about very much anymore. Stewardship is usually in church when they're asking us to give. But stewardship is also about being good caretakers of what God has given us. So if we're being good caretakers of our money, we can help other people with our money. Like God told Abraham, I'm going to bless you so you can hoard. No, that's not what he said. He said, I'm going to bless you so you can bless other people. So that's how the money needs you. That's a powerful belief to adopt right there. So are you saying I'm worthless? Are you rejecting prosperity? Do you have trouble receiving? Those are all things that, if you take a garden hose and the water's running and then you crimp the garden hose, the flow stops. Lack of faith stops the current. By the way, we call money currency, don't we? What does that mean? There's a flow. It comes in and it goes out. We want to keep the flow. We don't want to hoard. It's not about hoarding. It's about being blessed so we can bless others. So here's some ideas for you. First thing is declutter. I know a lot of people are decluttering right now. So maybe you need to declutter some of your expenses, but create some space. Create some space for abundance. This is huge. We all need to create space for abundance. Expect it. It's on the way. The second part of this is there is enough for everyone. Adopt that belief system. I know right now with the loans going on, it's like, hurry up and get our money, get our application in because the money's going to run out. And there's a lot of scarcity thinking going on in the country right now. And I'm not saying that's not valid, but we also have to think about there is enough for everyone. What is the difference? So here's a question for you. What is the difference between a scarcity mentality and an abundance mentality? Well, Wayne Dyer had this example that I just love that illustrates very well to me the difference between an abundance mentality and a scarcity mentality. So if you take an apple and you cut the apple open, some of you have done this in your office. Take an apple, cut it open. What do you see inside? You see seeds. How many? Maybe 5 or 6. Okay. So if I ask you a question, how many apples are in these 6 seeds? A scarcity thinker says 6. I've actually had people say that, 6 seeds. An abundance thinker says it's infinity.
Yeah.
Because how many apples are in that one seed? Well, when you plant it, you grow a tree, you get more apples, you get more seeds. So it continues, it's infinity. So I had one person, he was a salesperson, and I was coaching him, and I asked him that question, he was struggling with the sales. I said, how many apples are in these 6 seeds? He said 6. He said, this is all I have to work with. And that is definitely a scarcity thinking mentality. So we have to be on guard for what we're saying. The other thing that stops the flow of money and the flow of abundance in our life is when we don't rejoice when other people succeed. So we criticize other people and they're spending, well, I don't understand why they're spending that with the income that they have. I'd like to know where they're getting that money from. Must be nice. And we're stingy tipper. Whatever you want, give it away. I'm not saying be unreasonable, but I'm saying when we feel like we have to hold all of that close to us and we can't give to other people and we can't rejoice when someone is succeeding, then we're in trouble. We're going to have some trouble. Another thing that's very important is visualizing abundance. So we get so focused on looking at what's current reality. Well, you don't understand, Paula, because this is all I have right now, and I don't know where it's going to come from, and we don't have all the answers. That's absolutely true. But are you visualizing abundance, or are you visualizing scarcity? When your thought process is going on, are you going, oh, well, I'm not going to have any money this month, and that means I'm not going to be able to do this, I'm not going to be able to do this, and that goes away, and then this goes away, and then I don't know about my retirement, and we're 30 years old, and we're already thinking about how we're not going to have any money when we're 70. Oh boy, that's really healthy. So start thinking of and creating a vision for what it looks like when you have abundance. This is powerful because there again, it's programming your subconscious mind. A great book is Think and Grow Rich. If you don't have this book, I have it as a PDF. I'll share it with you. It was written in the 30s. It talks about this. It still applies to today. So if you need a copy of it, send me an email, paulaharriscoaching@gmail.com. Harris is 2 R's, 2 S's, and I will send you a copy. Another thing that's powerful to do to help you visualize abundance is a vision board. Some of you have done this before. It's really pretty cool. I've done it. So here's a sample of one. You can have words on there. You can have pictures on there. Do this with your kids. Do this with your family, your spouse. Have some fun creating a vision board that really gets you in the zone of thinking abundance. This is powerful. I have my vision board, everything but one thing has come true on my vision board. It's pretty awesome. Recognize prosperity when it happens. What does that mean? I don't know if you can see this, it's pretty small. But did you know that 86% of the people who win the lottery lose the money?
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty, everybody says, oh, if I could just win the lottery, I'd be fine. No, it's not so, because 86% of the people who win lose the money. Why is that? Because of homeostasis. We have conditioned our brains to believe the same thing. This is why we lose weight, gain it back. This is why we'll have a heart attack, and we're going to change our lifestyle. 96% of the people with heart bypass return to their bad habits a year later because we haven't created new belief systems. Pretty interesting, huh? Pretty interesting. All right, another thing that helps us in developing healthy attitudes about money is giving. You might say, well, I don't have anything to give. But what do we know about millennials? Millennials want to have impact. They want to make a difference in this planet. And they like to make an impact now. They don't want to wait. So maybe you can't give money to someone, but maybe you can give your time, especially right now, right? Yep. So here's a question in Think and Grow Rich. I love that song. I like to play it a lot. Okay. If you had all the money that you wanted, how would you use it to serve mankind? You see, we think about having all the money that we wanted, so we keep it for ourselves. You know, in Tennessee, they say, get all you can, then can all you get, and then sit on your can. That's not what we're called to do, right? The purpose of you having abundance is so that you can share with others and serve mankind. Is that not true? Wouldn't we want that to happen to us if we were needy? You see, that's another part of the money needs me. I can't give to charity if I can't pay my own bills. I can't help anybody else if I can't take care of my own family. So how can you serve mankind? That's the purpose. So here's a game that's really fun to play. And I actually did it. It's called the abundance game. And so you take checks, get some blank checks or make some copies of a check and get an old check register, a spare check register, use an Excel spreadsheet, whatever you want to do, and start writing yourself checks every day. Now, I'm not meaning like you're really adding this to your current checking deposit because you don't have the funds to back it up. So please don't misunderstand me. This is a game, okay? So you're going to write yourself $1,000 today. Write yourself a check for $1,000. Now you have to spend all of that $1,000 today. Tomorrow, you're going to write yourself $2,000. And you got to spend all of that money today. All of that $2,000. The next day, $3,000, etc. You're going to do this up to 30 days. Oh my gosh. I'd love to hear your feedback for those of you that play this game of what happened. I'm not going to tell you exactly what happened with me because I want you to play the game. But I'd love to know what happens to you when you start spending all this money every day. You've got to spend all that money in one day. And it goes up. So the last day, if you do this for 30 days, the last day you're having to spend 30 grand in one day. Okay, you got me? All right. So give me some feedback on how that happens for you and what you do. Okay. So there are 7 deadly sins in the midst of a financial crisis. Anger. Now, some of you have seen my grief curve that I've been putting out. Anger, lust, greed, slothfulness, lazy, pride, envy, and gluttony. Now, I'm not going to go into all of these, but think about, if you're going to watch this later, pause the video and stop and have a conversation with your family about, where am I here? Am I angry about what's happening right now? Am I lusting after my neighbor who's got all this money, or a coworker who's got more money than I do? Or, I used to ask God, why did you put me in this situation where I don't have, when I was younger and my first marriage, I didn't have a healthy financial situation. And I used to question God about that. Like, why did you let this happen to me with these 5 kids? And one day the answer kind of came to me, if I let that happen to you, you wouldn't be trusting me like you do now. You would not be leaning on me like you do now. And that was powerful. That was a powerful revelation in my life. And so I've made peace with that. So I'm going to switch here. I'm going to stop right here and go over to the manual now. So I want to pull up the manual that we're going to be sharing together, and a few pages out of the manual. Hi, everybody. Gosh, I didn't realize all these people are on. It's so great to have you. So I'm going to share one of the pages here, and this section comes from a book called Enough, and the author is Ray Hamilton. So this is a book that I bought and got permission to use the material. So this came from a church in Oklahoma or somewhere. So those were some of the topics: faith in the midst of financial crisis, when dreams become nightmares, wisdom in finance, cultivating contentment. We're going to talk about some of this, defined by generosity. I want to go to these 6 key financial principles here. So the first one, and these are all biblically based, is putting God first in your living and your giving. So this goes back to prioritizing your life. And this is mentioned in Corinthians. Second, prepare a spending plan and track all your expenses monthly. This is mentioned in Proverbs. This is about being good stewards, as I mentioned earlier. This is stewardship. Stewardship doesn't mean just giving to your church. It means taking care of the gifts and talents that God has given you. Number 3, simplify your lifestyle. Live below your means. Some of you are living paycheck to paycheck. That's dangerous. That is dangerous. Live below your means. Don't just look at your monthly payments and, can I make my monthly payment? Look at how you're going to get out of debt, how you're going to avoid the maximum monthly payments. Number 4, provide immediately for an emergency fund. Now, everyone has a different opinion on this. Some people say 3 months of your monthly expenses. Some say 6 months. When we're talking about overhead in a business, I usually suggest 50-60% of your expenses. 30% is compensation for the owner, doctor, owner, whatever, and then 10% in savings. And I'll tell you, I've had some clients who are doing this right now, and they are so thankful that they have that 6-month reserve built up. And it's taken some sacrifice, but they've made it. Pay off your credit card debt and use cash, not credit cards. If you cannot control yourself with your credit card, don't use credit cards. If you use a debit card, make sure you're entering your expenses. Don't just use it assuming there's money there. Number 6, practice long-range saving and investing habits. And you have to know your risk factors and those type things. So these are some important principles to have. So let's go over to page 17 and talk about a personal budget worksheet. Now, some of this came from Dave Ramsey's Total Money Makeover, which some of you may have read. And so for a personal budget, and I have a spreadsheet for a personal budget if you need that. Again, please let me know. Housing. Your housing expenses should be 25 to 35% of your monthly income. Your transportation should be 10 to 15%. Your charitable gifts, 10 to 12%. So let me just mention a little bit about tithing. You know, some people say, well, tithing is not a New Testament thing. It's in the Bible. Actually, tithing was under the law. You know, Malachi 3 talks about tithing. Actually, tithing was mentioned in the Bible before the law, when Abraham met with Melchizedek and he gave him 10% of his goods. So, you know, you don't have to be legally bound by this, but we want to give. God says he loves a cheerful giver. And I can't tell you how many times, we don't have time today to talk about all my story, but I have tithed in the midst of financial crisis and been blessed, unexplainably blessed, restoration blessed, of things that I lost that came back to me double and triple and even more than that. And there are verses in the Bible that talk about being restored double. The end of Job, it said, the last chapter of Job, when Job prayed for his friends, he was restored double all of his possessions. It mentions this in Zechariah. It mentions this in Joel. So there are verses about, you know, one of the things you do in financial crisis is you start claiming the promises. You start remembering, and when you get my age, you can remember all the crises from the past and how God brought you through. When you're a little bit younger, you don't have that much history. Go talk to someone who has been through financial crisis several times, and they'll tell you, hopefully, if they're strong in their faith, that God has brought them through every single time when it seemed impossible. Money just shows up. Somebody gave them something that day. That happened to one of my daughters last week. You know, something just happened all of a sudden that was an unexpected gift that was just meeting the need right in the moment. So make sure you give to charity, even if you feel like you're struggling. Food, 5 to 15%. I bet we're on that 15% end right now with all the time we've had in the eating. Saving, 5 to 10%. Utilities, 5 to 10%. Your medical and health, 5 to 10%. Paying off your debt, 5 to 10%. Clothing, well, that depends on if you're a man or a woman. No, not necessarily. That's not gender specific anymore. Clothing, 2 to 7%, and miscellaneous, 12 to 23%. That's a big chunk of miscellaneous right there. I mean, that I would say you've got birthdays, you've got things that come up with your car that you weren't expecting. Unexpected expenses that you just have to have room for. So this is a good sample of a personal budget. If you have not done a budget before, I suggest you do one. I'd like to go to this next page, which is about creating and cultivating contentment. So there are 4 keys to cultivating contentment. We don't know how to be content in our society, and capitalism will oftentimes try to get us to buy more. Have you noticed that? Have you noticed as soon as you have a new cell phone that you think is the latest one, another one comes out. And you're like, doggone it, I thought I had the best one. And our cars, we're like, well, I'm going to be content with this car. I'm not going to buy another car. Well, lo and behold, we see the new model and we're like, I got to have that. My car is out of date. I'm embarrassed to drive this old thing around. So our media, our marketing, our capitalism, which I'm in favor of capitalism, but sometimes it pushes us to buy, spend, 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 and keep up with the Joneses, quote unquote. So what are some 4 keys to cultivating contentment? I'm not going to develop these a whole lot, but I'm going to mention them. 4 words to repeat: it could be worse. Some people might have a hard time saying that right now. I don't know, but it could be worse. If you talk to people who lived through the Depression, my parents lived through that, it could be worse. There were no stimulus packages. There was no stimulus checks. There was no unemployment. It was a lot worse than it is now. The second item B here, 4 keys, is for how long will this make me happy? So you see, we think that having something new or spending, some of us are emotional spenders. Like I said in the beginning, money is emotional. Some of us think that if I buy this, it's really going to give me a fix. Some of us are addicted to the fix that money gives us. And the fix of going out and retail therapy, buying something. Some people are like that. I'm not a big shopper, so it doesn't really get to me. But sometimes just buying something quick on Amazon makes me feel good. I don't know. I live in the boonies and I work all the time, so I don't really get to go shopping. And I'm pretty much dominant when I shop. I like to just go in and get it and get out. I don't want to spend a lot of time. But how long will this make me happy? This isn't going to last. And then developing a grateful heart is also contentment. I have to share, there's a verse that in maybe Corinthians or Romans, I can't remember exactly where it is, that Paul says, I'm learning that to be content in whatever state I'm in. That doesn't mean like Texas or Oklahoma. It means like whatever the state of my situation is, I'm learning to be content. Can we say that? God gives us peace. He promises peace. We don't have to beg for peace. He promised that we have peace. So are we claiming that? Are we living in the peace that he gave us? Or are we kind of shoving that aside? And I think we can be content. There is contentment where we are. So the next page here, the 4th way to cultivate contentment is, where does your soul find true satisfaction? Think about that. Where do you go for true satisfaction? There's the old song, can't get no satisfaction. I didn't I didn't put that in here. But maybe we need to shift to what truly satisfies us from pleasure. King Solomon talked about this in Song of Solomon. He says it's all vanity. It's all dust. It's all smoke. It's all in the wind. And he had everything. And he still wasn't happy. He still wasn't content. He had all kinds of money and different things that were in his life, and it still did not satisfy him. So you might want to read Song of Solomon or Ecclesiastes. I guess Ecclesiastes is really what I'm talking about, of finding enjoyment in your toil and being content in where you are. So let's look further here. 5 steps for simplifying our lives. I think this is really important. Simplify. I had a wise lady tell me that a couple of years ago. I was at a women's retreat and I was just feeling a bit stuck in my life. And she wrote me a card that said, simplify. Just a little index card. She just handed it to me and said, simplify. And I'm not sure I've followed all that advice very well, but I have simplified a lot of things in my life. And so number 1, set a goal for reducing your consumption and living below your means. Oh boy. That's tough. Think about maybe a 10% or 5% reduction. Start with something that's reasonable. Before making a purchase, ask yourself, do I really need this and why do I want this? So start with why is a big buzzword these days. Maybe you need to ask yourself, why do I want this? What is this going to do for me? The next one is use something up before buying something new. I might tell one on myself about, certain facial products that are pretty expensive. And the older I get, the more expensive my face cream is. Have you noticed that? And so I have this tendency to use something for a little while, and then I see something else that looks great and promises even better wrinkle reduction. And so I'll just skip that bottle that I was using and buy another one. So I have this tendency to do that, and I have to watch that. Plan low-cost entertainment that enriches. So it doesn't have to be the most expensive thing for entertainment. And a lot of times our kids and our families, they just want us to be together. They don't necessarily have to be doing something extremely fun. They just want you to be with them. And I mean, when I'm saying be with them, put your phone down. I had a little clip I had on my page, social media, the other day of a little brother feeding his baby sister. And he had the spoon out, and he kept moving it, and she couldn't get her mouth on it because he was looking at his phone. He wasn't paying attention. And she finally just reached up and grabbed the phone from him. She looked like she was about 18 months old. So, are we really focused on our family when we're with our family? Next, are there major changes that would allow me to simplify my life? Some people have sold their home or traded in their cars. I mean, those are some drastic things that we can do. That maybe, I know some team members who've gotten overextended because they wanted this huge house, and it really wasn't right for them. It wasn't right for their budget, and they did it because they could squeeze it in their monthly payment. And so maybe we need to rethink that. Maybe there's a couple things we could do to change that so we don't feel that pressure. I'll tell you what, debt and overextending ourselves brings a lot of stress and pressure on your life, and that affects your health. The power of self-control, oh boy. Now in the Bible, it talks about one of the fruit of the Spirit. It has a list of the fruit of the Spirit. It doesn't say fruits of the Spirit. It says fruit of the Spirit, and one of those is self-control. So, you have to really think about some of these things. The fifth one is, which tent will you live in? Are you going to live in discontent or contentment? I like that. What's your tent going to be? Discontent? Oh my gosh, that's so fun. So that's a fun thing to do with your kids. What tent are you in today? Are you in discontent or contentment? So build them a couple of tents in the living room. So let's go on to another page, which is about being defined by generosity. I think there's some things we can look at here. And I mentioned giving a tithe, and then there's giving beyond the tithe. And are you just tithing to get that tax deduction? Ooh, touche. Let's not talk about that. If there were no tax deduction for charitable giving, would you give? That's a tough soul-searching question. And some people think, well, I'm giving my 10%. It doesn't matter where I give it. And really, our 10% is off the top. That's the first fruit, not the bottom fruit. Like if I have any left over, I'll give my 10%. And giving beyond the tithe is important. And what our giving means to God, how does our giving affect God? It really makes him happy. It makes him happy because it shows that we are trusting him. How does it affect us? Our hearts are changed. And there's a great verse, Luke 6:38, that says, "Give and it will be given to you, pressed down, shaken together, and overflowing, because how you give is the measure that you'll receive back." Now that's not an exact quote, but you get the point. That's the Paula version. So I just want to encourage you to be generous. And then I want to encourage you to create some goals. So there's a goal sheet in the manual, or you may want to have your own goal sheet of what you're going to do and make some commitments. I like this here. I'll thank God daily for my blessings. Just being grateful for what you have is powerful. Now, what's the difference in faith and gratitude? Faith is being thankful for something that hasn't happened yet. Gratitude, that's Hebrews 11:1. Gratitude is being thankful for something after it happens. So I think we could exercise both, being grateful for what we do have already. Some days I'll admit I'll be in a funk, and my husband and I, we encourage each other. And I was in that funk a few months ago, and we were pulling out of the garage, and he said, "Isn't it great to have a garage door opener so we don't have to get out of the car and open and close our garage?" And I'm like, shut up. I mean, yeah, it was really encouraging. He puts me back on target, wait a minute here. Let's get back in our gratitude zone. I will seek contentment and simplicity and live within my means. My spending goal is this. I will seek freedom from the bonds of credit and debt. My debt goal reduction is this. I will seek wisely to manage the gifts God has given me. That's stewardship, investing and saving for the future. My saving goal is this. I will worship God each week by giving tithes and offerings. My estimate for giving is here. And you pray over that. And I'll tell you, it's so important. If you have kids at home and you have family, teach them these concepts. Don't just go to them and say, well, things are tight right now. This is what my dad used to do. And there were rough times growing up as kids, and he lived through some rough times as a kid himself. And I don't blame him for that, but we want to seek abundance, and we want to teach our kids abundance. We want to teach them responsibility for money. I had my girls saving their money and spending their money and budgeting their money at a young age. But don't just be negative with your family and be grouchy every time they ask for something. Let them know the status and what you're doing to work things out. Pull together as a team. Don't alienate your family just because they ask you for something. So the next thing I want to talk about on the commitment factor is the levels of commitment. Now, some of you have heard this talk before, but there are 5 levels of commitment. So the first one is I don't want to. And that might not sound like commitment to you, but for a lot of people, I don't want to means in a job, for example, I'm committed to my paycheck, but I don't want to do whatever it takes to get this result. Or I'm committed to eating healthy, but I don't really want to do it. I don't want to stage. I know I should be doing that, but I don't want to. Level 2 is I want the results, but I don't want to work for it. Yep, you know that one? Yeah, I want that better fit body and these pounds off, but I don't really want to do what it's going to take to get there. Or level 3 is I might go outside and exercise today if it's nice weather. Now let's see, it has to be 65 degrees and not too sunny and a little bit of breeze so I don't get too hot. And that's the only time I'll exercise, which might be 3 days out of the year, So we have all these conditions that we have to meet before we're going to exercise. The 4th level of commitment is I did my best. Well, that typically leaves room for something else. An example of this is when a kid doesn't do well on a test and you ask them what happened, and they usually say, well, I did my best. And what they're saying is they procrastinated to the last minute. They were staying up till midnight and you made them go to bed, so it's your fault. So there's usually a little bit of room. And Winston Churchill has a great quote, there's no use in doing our best. We must do what's necessary. And that's your level 5, which is a willing wit, whatever it takes, WIT. Are you willing to do whatever it takes right now to create a healthy abundance mentality and take a close look at your finances and tell the truth about what's going on in your life and your beliefs about money? So I want to encourage you with that. And then finally, I want to, going the wrong way, sorry. I want to talk to you about uncertainty. We are definitely in uncertain times, and we probably always will be. We get a false sense of security sometimes from the money in our account or our job, and then sometimes that's stripped away from us and our security feels rocky. So I want you to adopt this thought of uncertainty equals security. That may sound like an oxymoron, and it probably is, but there's a great verse in Colossians from the Message version I'm going to read. Your old life is dead. Your new life, which is your real life, even though invisible to spectators, is with Christ in God. He is your life. When Christ, your real life, remember, shows up again on this earth, you'll show up too. The real you, the glorious you. Meanwhile, be content, there's that tent again, with obscurity like Christ. Wow. Security is an illusion. There is wisdom in insecurity. Freedom and creativity live in insecurity. Isn't that powerful? That is powerful. We are, I'm going to go to the bottom here. Uncertainty brings about endless possibilities and ignites our creativity. That's what I was saying about creating space for transformation. We've been given a lot of space right now. Get creative. What are you going to create? Are you going to sit around and mope, or are you going to create? And I've seen some powerful things being created right now. It's amazing what's being created. So I applaud those of you who are out there doing something with this time and creating. When we are fully alive and on purpose, we glorify our magnificent Lord. Does the Lord trust you with uncertainty? Are you alert and awake? Welcome it. Pretty powerful stuff. So I want to stop here, and I'm going to unmute everyone. And I'd love to know if you want to share a little bit, if you have anything you want to say. I'd love to hear from you. If you have any comments or questions, feel free to open up.
I think, Paula, first of all, it's mentality. When you and I both are around people, you can immediately get a sense of discouragement instantly, or someone who is looking for possibilities.
You're right.
And if you're at all, and if you're that person and you don't know it, it's really hard. So you really have to do some inner searching to say, am I the person who says, wow, this is going to be horrible. Everybody's going to hate me as their boss for the next 4 months because I laid them off, or whatever that is. And really what you have to say is, all right, how am I going to lean, right?
Yeah.
Which direction am I going to lean? Mm-hmm. And then how am I going to show my team how to make the most of this in preparedness and action and things that I do. And I think it's just how you start your day. Do you start your day waking up in a positive direction and making sure that your words are directing your actions and your spirit and how you're going? And I use the verses that you gave me years ago from First Chronicles. So those are on my wall. They're there. I look at it every day when I walk in my office. And so I still go First Chronicles 4:10 if anybody wants to look it up. So that to me has always been
that was the prayer of Jabez, right?
Yeah.
That's a powerful one right there, Eric. I love the prayer of Jabez. It's absolutely powerful. And for some of you that don't know that, do you want to share it with them, or do you want me to? Or?
Yeah, First Chronicles 4:10. It's basically breaks down into 4 sections. Mm-hmm. Oh, that you'd bless me indeed, you'd expand my territories, you guide me with your hand, and you lead temptation far from me. And so if you go in and you read that and you break down how that works, it really expands into all areas of your life. And God wants to bless you, and he wants you to have the willingness to lean on him and accept that blessing. But too many of us fight and kick and get angry and say, why me? And it goes the wrong way quickly. And that's been a real blessing to have in my life. And so I thank you for that, for giving me that years ago. So
oh, yeah, I prayed that prayer every day. And it recently came back to me again because I kind of dropped off, how entropy happens. Yep. And it is very powerful. Thank you for that. Eric, that's great. That's wonderful. And I've seen that play out in your life for sure. You know, we've both been through some rough stuff in the business world, haven't we?
Yeah, for sure.
No, we're not just talking because we got it made. We're talking because, you know, we deal with it too. Yeah, I totally get that. Anybody else have anything? You can unmute yourself that you would like to ask or share with the group. Happy to listen to your question or your comment about that, or maybe a story of how you've been blessed and things have worked out great for you. We have just a couple minutes. Anybody else? All right. Okay. Well, as I mentioned before, if you would like a copy of the manual, just let me know, and I'll be happy to send that to you. And my email address is Paula Harris Coaching, and the Harris is 2 R's, 2 S's, @gmail.com. Or you can text me, 865-679-2728. So thank you all for joining today, and I hope this means a lot to you, and I hope you'll share with someone else and encourage them that's going through a hard time. So thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, Paula. Thanks, Eric.
Bye, Mark.
Welcome.
Thanks.